Hey everybody. So one of the things that we've been talking about in my group coaching program, Manifestation Magic, is about inspired action and the importance of inspired action. You know, there is so much in our society about hustle, right? And really like cramming as much into a day as possible, and you can't have anything unless you work really 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 hard for it. And you have to just work 60, 70, 80 hours a week to prove your worth is essentially what's happening there, but that's another story for another time. But we have all of this hustle energy in our culture, and what we really need to have is flow and inspired action. If you were to, let's say, want to win the lottery, for example, and you were trying to force it, you were buying every single ticket every time and every scratch off, and you're spending all this money all this time just trying to win the lottery. But if you were to take a step back and get into a state of flow, and then take aligned, inspired action, like when your intuition goes, buy a ticket now, A, you'd save some money, and B, you'd have a better chance of winning, right? Or, if you want to have a different job, and you're just like throwing shit up against the wall to see what sticks, and you're just applying for everything, whether you want the job or not, because you think that that's what you have to do. You have to force an effort and make it happen. Well, instead, you could just flow. And when you feel the inspired and aligned action, like, ooh, I need to send a resume to this company at this time, you would stand a much better chance of getting that job if it's in alignment with you. So taking inspired action while being in a state of flow, meaning you're not forcing, you're not efforting, you're waiting for your intuition to go now. And then you're taking the action that in that moment is the right action, right? You're going to have a completely different experience than if you are trying to force and effort and make it happen and put all this energy into it. That's not necessarily the greatest energy. Forcing energy is not helpful energy, but flow energy is really helpful. And I always use the example of like, you could be in a canoe floating down the river, or you could be in the canoe fighting to bring the canoe upstream instead of just flowing downstream, right? And so this is about, where are you forcing and efforting and pushing and trying to make it happen? And how could you go about it differently by getting into a state of flow and only taking action when it feels aligned and inspired? So just a little food for thought there. If you want to think about how, what that would be like for you, feel free to drop any questions or thoughts in the comments. I would love to hear them. But really start thinking about, how could I be more in flow? And what does that flow look and feel like? All right, everybody. Talk